Welcome to the Florida Divorce Podcast, your source for the information you need to successfully get through your divorce and into the next exciting chapter of life. Now, here's your host, Attorney Scott Kalish.
Hey everybody, my name is Scott Kalish and I am a divorce and family law attorney here in South Florida. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about how child support is calculated in Florida. Now, something to keep in mind is that in family law in general, right, in divorce, it's a very gray practice area in general, right? I mean, it's not black and white. But out of all of the issues in a divorce case or another family law case, child support is probably one of the most black and white areas that we have in this practice area. And that's because child support is calculated pursuant to what's called the Florida Child Support Guidelines, right? It's basically a formula that the legislature up in Tallahassee, they came up with to calculate child support. Now, there are some gray areas, right, in child support, such as like determining what someone's income is, right? Because sometimes a person can work for, let's say, Publix and be a W-2 employee. And the amount of income is very, very straightforward. Another time, that person could work for themselves and have a small business. So the amount that they're making, their income, can be very, very gray and subject to a lot of argument from both sides. So that's something to keep in mind. But for the most part, coming to child support is pretty black and white. Here's how we calculate it, right? So the components of child support are the following. The first thing that's most important are the incomes of mom and dad. That's going to swing child support greatly. Child support is going to depend a lot on the parties, their income. The second thing that really drives child support is the amount of overnights a parent has with the child, right? So if both parents have 50-50 time, then child support will be very different than if one parent has, let's say, 80% of the time and the other parent has 20% of the amount of overnights. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing that affects child support is one parent coming out of pocket for insurance, for health insurance for the kids. So that's going to be calculated and added into the calculation because insurance is something that the child support guidelines has both parents sharing, even if one parent is paying for it, let's say out of their paycheck. The other thing that's very, very important, especially with young kids, is the amount of daycare. If one parent is paying for daycare or aftercare because they're in school or they're working, that's something the child support guidelines factors into the calculation. That's something that both parents have to share in under the child support guidelines. This is even the case if, let's say, mom uses childcare, but dad doesn't because dad's work schedule allows him to be with the kids when they're out of school. Or maybe dad has, a new wife or a girlfriend that's watching the kids for free. Mom's childcare, the law says mom's childcare has to go into the child support calculation. So that's also something that could affect the number. Something I also wanted to bring up to you is that even if, let's say, the parents have 50-50 time sharing, right? Everyone has equal amount of time sharing. That doesn't mean that child support is going to be eliminated. If one parent is making way more than the other parent and there's a 50-50 time sharing arrangement, child support's still going to have to be calculated. And if one parent's making like double than the other parent, then I suspect that child support is going to flow from the parent making the more money to the parent making less money. Now, I'm going to do a podcast episode in the future where I break down certain scenarios of income and time sharing so you can really get a sense of how much child support can be based upon some example figures. So that's really it. That's child support in a nutshell, and that's how we calculate child support, under Florida law. If you like this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. If you have a question, please feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to answer it. It's my email, scott@kjlawfla.com. Again, scott@kjlawfla.com. if you ask a good question, I'm happy to make it a podcast episode. I'm happy to make a podcast episode about your question. Obviously, give me permission, and I won't say your name, but I'm happy to do an episode about your great question. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Florida Divorce Podcast. To learn the 10 secrets behind every successful divorce, visit floridadivorcepodcast.com. If you'd like Scott's help in your divorce case, go to kjlawfla.com.